So first, we are going to start a session using the session start function, because you're going to be using some session variables later. And also we're going to connect to the database by including the connection file. So we need to connect so that we can run queries later on and add a new record to the trips table. Okay, so first, as usual, I'm going to define all the error messages. So the possible error messages that we're going to potentially get here are going to be something like missing departure or invalid departure. Okay, so you're going to get an invalid departure if the departure is there but the coordinates are not there, okay, because the status of the geocoder request has failed. All right, we're going to have similarly a missing destination or invalid destination, missing price or invalid price if we have something other than digits, also missing seats available or invalid seats available, missing frequency if the user doesn't select any of these two radio buttons, okay, and also if the trip is regular and the user doesn't select any of these, then we're going to say that we've got missing dates, because we need to select at least one of these if the trip is regular. And if it's a one-off trip and the date is missing, we're going to have a missing date error. And in both cases, we're going to have a missing time if the user doesn't provide the time of the trip. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Missing departure. So I'm going to place all these errors inside a paragraph. And then later on, when we want to echo the error variable, then we're going to place everything inside a div, and we're going to give it some proper styling using some classes like the alert and alert danger. Okay, so we're going to have a paragraph for each. And for this one, let's add the strong tags to make it bold. Okay, and let's write something like, please enter your departure. Okay, so as I have just covered all the possible errors, okay, I'm going to pause the video and just type all the rest to save you time. Okay, and I suggest you just continue on your side and you write all the possible error messages. All right, now I've got all the error messages, okay? I hope that you've got something similar. So now I'm ready to get all the inputs, okay? Okay, so if the user gets to this file, then they would have definitely clicked on that button, okay, which sends an AJAX call to our PHP file. So I'm going to go straight away and define variables where I'm going to place all the post elements like this, starting with the departure, okay, and then the destination, and then the price, seats available, and so on. And for each, we just need to use the name of that specific field. Okay, so again, this is pretty straightforward. To save time, I'm going to pause the video again, and you can just do this on your own. Okay, so I'm going to pause for now. Okay, so we've got all our inputs. Well, basically we are missing the coordinates. Okay, so for these ones, we don't need to check if these are set before defining a variable and storing the post elements inside the variable. Okay, because if the user gets to this PHP file, we are sure that they have clicked on that button and we are sure that they have submitted that form. Okay, so now we're going to need to start looking into each of these variables, okay, and then check if you've got any errors. And then when we are looking at the departure, for example, then we will see if the coordinates are set or not. Okay, so let's check the departure and see if we've got any errors. So we're going to check if the variable departure is empty, then we're going to add to the errors variable the error corresponding to missing departure. Okay. Otherwise, if that's not empty, then that means that we're going to need to look at the coordinates. So you're going to need to check the coordinates. Okay. So to check the coordinates, this is going to depend on whether the geocoder request has been successful or not. So if the geocoder has been successful, this means that the coordinates are going to be set. Otherwise, they're not going to be set. So if they are not set, that means that we've got an invalid departure. So we're going to say if the coordinates are not set, then we're going to have an invalid departure. So we're just going to add to the errors variable the error corresponding to invalid departure. Okay. If they are set, then we're going to define variables departure latitude and departure longitude, where we're going to place the post elements corresponding to the latitude of the departure and the longitude. Okay, so the latitude will correspond to the element of name departure latitude. So if you remember, that's what we used right there. Okay, that's the name of the departure latitude or longitude. Okay, and we can have the same thing for the longitude. Okay, so to check if the coordinates or one of the coordinates is not set, we will just use the isSet function, or the opposite of isSet, like this. So if one of them is not set, so we're looking at post departure latitude. Okay. Or post departure longitude. Okay, so if one of them is not set, that means that we've got an invalid departure. All right. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with the destination. We'll just change everywhere where it says departure to destination. Okay. Now we're going to check the price. Okay, pretty straightforward. So we're going to check if the field is empty. using the empty function. And the price was stored inside the variable price. So if that's empty, then we're going to add to the errors variable the error corresponding to missing price. Okay. Else, we're going to check if the price is valid or not. So we're going to use an else if statement. So if the price is not valid, then we're going to add the error message corresponding to invalid price. Else, if everything is okay, then we are going to filter sanitize the price. Okay. So for this, we're going to use the filter var function, which will take a couple of parameters, the price itself and filter sanitize string, as we're dealing with a string. Okay. Now let's go back to the departure and destination. If the coordinates are okay, then we're going to need to filter sanitize the departure or the destination. Okay, so that's for the departure. Okay, and that's for the destination. Okay, we don't need to filter sanitize the latitude and longitude because those are just numbers and they are returned by Google. All right, so now we're going to check the seats available. Okay, before we do that, let's just fill this. Okay, so we were checking there if the price is not valid. That means that there is something other than a digit inside the price. So you're going to use the preg match function, which will take as a parameter a regex. So something other than a digit is going to be \D. And we have seen this before. Okay, and we need another parameter. It's the price itself. All right, so let's copy this code and customize it for the seats available. It's more or less the same thing. So if it's missing, we're going to say missing seats available. Okay, if there is something other than a digit, then we're going to say invalid seats available. Otherwise, we're just going to filter var or sanitize the variable using the filter var function. Okay. Now we're going to check the frequency. So if the frequency is missing, we're going to show an error message. So if empty frequency or regular, then we're going to add to the error message the error corresponding to missing frequency. Okay. If the frequency is there, then we're going to use an else if statement here to check if the frequency is regular or not. If it's regular, then we're going to check if there are no days selected. Okay. So if regular is equal to yes, So let's just have a quick look at the values that we placed in there. Okay, so you've got two values there, yes and no, and these are the values we are looking at in the PHP file. Okay, so if that's the case, we're going to check if there are no days selected, which means that all of them are empty. Then we're going to add to the errors variable missing days. Okay. Also, we're going to check the time, and if the time is missing, we're going to say something similar. So if empty time, then we're going to say missing time. All right. Else, meaning it's not regular. Then we're going to check both the date and time. Okay. So if the date is missing, we're going to show an error message for the date. So date is missing means empty date. And for that, we're going to add an error message missing date. I'm going to check the time again right there. Okay, so to check if none of these weekdays is selected, if it's regular, then we're going to check if all of them are empty. So that means empty Monday, and empty Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Okay, so let's save. So in the next video, we're going to check if there are any error messages, meaning that the errors variable is not empty. Then we're going to print an error message in the errors div. Otherwise, we're going to build our query and then run the query to insert data in the database.